Shall we begin? Let's begin now.
All right, everybody, welcome back to a brand new episode of the Frankly Francisco podcast. Today's guest is an international bestseller, a Christian filmmaker, and a financial advisor. He also has a podcast called Money Matters. It is on Spotify. I'd like to introduce everybody to Don Galade. I'm sorry, Galade.
There you go. You got it.
Galade. How are we doing today, Don?
We're doing good, bro. How are you?
Good. So I find you have an interesting mix in what you do. You're a Christian filmmaker, you're a financial advisor, and you're a best-selling author. How did that all come to be?
I lost the bet. Well, I'm third generation musician. You know, my dad used to work with Patsy Cline. You know, you're a youngster. You don't probably know who she was, but I
know who Patsy is.
Oh, cool. I started in the insurance and investment business in '87, and I guess probably about 10 years later, somebody led me to the Lord, and we started doing Christian media, and Christian films, and Christian music, and then started writing, and it was went from there. It was pretty cool.
So I've had people that on this show, I've had, people who are a Christian. I've had quite a few people on here. I've never met a Christian filmmaker, which is, well, I've met one person with faith. That has a production company that they did a film that was faith-based. But for you, going into that realm of Christian movie making, tell me a little bit about that, because it's a lot different than Hollywood. The message is completely different.
Well, there was only one film, so it's not like I'm, Steven Spielberg or anything. But what happened was when my wife was pregnant with our first child, who is now 29, 28. Hope he doesn't say this. I got his age wrong. We stumbled across a cartoon caricature in church of what a partial birth abortion looks like. And we were naive kids. We're like, this is crazy. This can't be real. And we searched for a group to join to try to, put a stop to this, so to speak. Long story short, we joined a pro-life group. You miss a meeting, you become a vice president of that pro-life group. We started running trips to Washington, D.C. for the March for Life. We did that for 30 years. And we initially were going to make a movie about the March for Life, because we've gone so many times. Well, a good friend of mine who got us into the pro-life group, her story was she was a nurse in the early 70s, and she stumbled across a baby that was supposed to be aborted, but it lived. And she held that child till it died. And she said, I will name you John. And our film goal switched from a film about the March for Life to a film about Mary Ann. So it became The Voice of John. So if you can find it on Amazon. You can go to thevoiceofjohn.org and you can watch it for free, actually. And it was became a very forensic documentary, womb to tomb, about life. And we had a lot of folks that were, I don't want to say famous, because it's not a good word to use, but a lot of folks that were very, very well known, very known preachers and ministers and media folks that were part of the film. It was real exciting.
So have you ever thought about venturing into doing more documentaries that style when it comes to the religious aspect of things?
I would love to if I could, if I had somebody bankroll on it. That's the hard part. We were in 7 states making this film on a shoestring budget, just from donations from church groups, and it was fun. I mean, it was crazy. It was almost like being on the road, but I would do it full time if somebody else was writing checks.
I think a lot of people do things full time if other people writing checks for them too, especially
Indeed,
something that they
indeed.
love to do.
Sure.
Now, tell me a little bit about your podcast. You are a financial advisor,
Right.
so I know the show is based around that. What got you into helping people with their finances?
Well, it started off where I was just, doing it for the money, to be honest with you, because it was a good gig. And then what happened was after we made the film, right around the time the film was being wrapped up, my wife was on a missions trip in Africa, and I was scrolling through the channels. The kids were in bed. I was scrolling through the channels, and I kept hitting all these religious channels, and all these people were preaching about money. And I was like, I don't want to listen about money. That's all I do all day long. Man, come on, give me a break. And I felt like the first time I ever felt the nudge from the Holy Spirit saying, you should write a book. And I kind of laughed, and he laughed and I started typing. So that was the first book. But at that point, I realized, there's a lot of people that are investing wrong. And I don't mean they're putting their money in wrong things. I mean, they're investing for the wrong reasons. And God started to show me that the Bible talks about money more than he talks about heaven, hell, and salvation. And when you really wrap your head around that, he talks about money more than anything else. And I started to realize that's when I started to study the Bible, not just read it, and pick this word and what does it mean in Greek, and who wrote it and who was the audience. Because when you start to realize that, you've heard the term money is the root of all evil, right?
Right,
It's wrong.
right.
It's
I know.
the love of money is the root
Right.
of all evil. And when I realized that, because I've said money's the root of all evil 1,000 times, but when I realized that, I'm like, oh my gosh, there's so much in this book that people get wrong just because they've heard it wrong and they believe it that way. And then I started thinking, well, there's got to be a biblical way people can invest. And I started doing what's called biblical responsible investing, showing people they can invest in stocks, bonds, and mutual funds that don't support Planned Parenthood, that don't support human trafficking, that don't support Hamas or terror groups or anti-Semitic groups or anything that God would frown on. And then it all kind of came to fruition in my latest book called Awoken, where I kind of figured, you know what, I'm going to put it all together. Everything that's about me in one book. So I kind of say it's like the everything you're not supposed to talk about at a Thanksgiving dinner: God, guns, country, money, politics, elections, finances, all the stuff you're not supposed to talk about. We throw it in one book, call it done.
So, I mean, I respect your conviction and your faith and what you choose to do, which is it's a good thing because you have to follow the path that you feel is in front of you, and you
Right.
felt the calling, and you're doing what you feel like is necessary for you to do. Now, we all know that sometimes controversy can come along with religious beliefs.
Mhm.
So, how do you navigate that whole thing where you're trying to give the best advice you can, but at the same time you have to balance that with your beliefs?
Well, if somebody says, I actually have two different paths to take. If somebody says, listen, I want to invest in biblical responsible products, then we go down that path. If somebody says, I don't care about that, well, then we use regular old stuff that everybody uses every day. But I mean, the key is not compromising your values, your morals, and putting people the way I conduct my business, so to speak. Okay, I still have a fiduciary responsibility to the client. But if somebody says, I disagree with you on everything you're saying about this Jesus guy, well, that's all right. Just because you disagree with me doesn't make it wrong. It just means you disagree with it. So that's between you and God, no big. And the thrust of the book that I just finished, which became a bestseller in like 2 weeks, it was crazy. And what I do is I show people how we have this slippery slope that started in America probably around 1900 and is slowly we started to see this demise in morals and values and scruples and have you ever seen the movie The Never-Ending Story?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Yeah.
And there's the nothing, and
Yeah. The nothing.
takes over, the nothing grows. And that's what I started to feel that like the nothing was taking over not just America, but the world. And being a huge fan of, I shouldn't say it that way, I love studying the book of Revelation. And when I started to realize, Revelation has a one world government, talks about a one world leader, talks about a one world currency. I see all that happening right now. And I started to notice that just watching the news, God forbid you find a station that has real news and not an agenda, but starting to watch actual what's going on in the media, you could start to see these things unfolding. Now, I'm not saying we are in the tribulation for those astute Bible study fans, but we are seeing birth pains. When a woman's in labor, the contractions become quicker and the pains get, more intense as you get closer to birth. And I believe that, we will see this tribulation in our lifetime. I truly believe that. If you have about 6 hours, I can explain to you where I got that data from. And, but so my goal is to say, look, I want to show you how we got here. I want to take you through some folks like the Rockefellers and show you how they started to really put us on a wrong path. And then we want to talk about the Federal Reserve. And then we want to talk about the Masons. And we want to talk about these other groups that, that's where the term conspiracy or theory comes from, because basically there's two forces in this world. You have good and evil. You have God and Satan, period, the end. And everything lines up with one of those two forces. So when you start to see, the United Nations and the World Health Organization and the International Monetary Fund, and then you see them unrolling the BRICS and Fed now and all these new forms of currencies, and you could start to slowly see how what's prophesied about what will happen is coming to fruition in real time. And when you put it all together, I always use the analogy, it's like a tapestry. Like we look at a tapestry and we see a picture, but if you flip it around, it's really, you see all the strings all over the place. So we're seeing the strings, but God sees the finished product of that picture. And, if you choose not to believe any of it, that's fine. But I want to give people a shot to say, listen, this Jesus guy was real. What's happening is real. And if you choose to not listen to it, well, I can't help you.
So on your podcast, though, do you bring some of this stuff up while you're talking finances? Is this a big subject for you?
Yeah, well, I try to have there's actually two separate versions of the podcast. There's the Money Matters show, and then there's Kingdom Financial Ministry. There's like two separate topics. I guess I talk about it all as if it's one, and if somebody's offended by that, sorry, I'm not going to make an excuse for the gospel. It's like, if they're offended by that, then I wish you well. But so it's pretty simple.
You have to stick to your convictions, man. If you feel your faith is that strong, then some people are not going to like it. Some people are going to like it. They're just going to have to adjust to it, man. We all have a calling. We all have a purpose.
Sure.
And you found yours, and you're doing what you believe is right for you, and you're doing what you believe is right for your family, and I can respect that. I can. And you're helping people along the way too. You're giving them sound financial advice to help them,
Sure.
to achieve certain goals, because most people don't have any idea. They step over dollars to get dimes. It's one of the greatest lines I've heard, and it was Dana White coined that phrase when I heard it, and
it's brilliant.
Yeah, and it stuck with me ever since. You step over dollars to pick up dimes, and I think people do that all the time. They're afraid to invest in themselves.
Right. And what frustrates me is there are a lot of people in my industry that don't help people. They're just doing it because it's a job. And I get that. It's just like maybe a doctor who doesn't really like people, it's a job. But sadly, that's what gives my industry seemingly a bad name at times. Just like if there's a lawyer that doesn't do things correctly, or if there's a car salesman who doesn't do things correctly. I mean, they're all jobs that we need. We need car salesmen and lawyers and investment people, but there's the stigma of they're gonna pull the wool over your eyes, and sadly, there's a lot of folks that do that. And that frustrates me. And it frustrates me even more when I see people who have podcasts and TV shows and have written books and they themselves are millionaires, leading people astray. They're saying things that aren't necessarily 100% true, and they're profiting from that. That frustrates me to no end, because it's there's this thin line between a TV personality and a radio personality and an investment advisor, and the way your license dictates what you can and cannot say. So if you call yourself an entertainer, you can say whatever you want, and you're giving people financial advice without a license. That's wrong. Things need to be changed on that.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I went for my licensing, and it's not the easiest in the world. I was able to get my 6, but when I came in and I was trying to get licensed, you have to get the SIE now, and I failed that test 5 separate times, and I failed it by 1 point on 5 different occasions. So 3 times my employer paid for it, and then twice I did it on my own. And then after the 5th time, to me, it was just a sign like, look, you just need to stop. You know what I mean? So you're on the cusp. You're not getting it. I was so close the first time that they let me take my 6, and I passed the 6 with no problem. To me, it was easy. But for some reason, that SIE, man, it just kept tripping me up. So I found a different path for myself.
Cool. Well, they don't make the tests easy, and it's not like, all of the following are not true except, like, what? Like, why do you have to do that? You want people to learn this stuff, not learn how to do word problems, but we don't have a dog in that hunt.
So I'm fascinated that you're an author. Writing is so hard. It is. It's difficult. I'm working on a book myself. It's difficult. It's very, very hard. You go back to it, and then for me, everybody says just write it and then worry about doing the draft, going through and editing it later. I can't. My mind won't allow me to do that, because I'll go back up and read back through it again and then see things that I can fix, and I try to fix it, but then it takes longer for me to get where I need to go.
That's why I wrote. That's why I write. It's sloppy. It's messy. It's miserable. But what I found is if I said, here's an outline and here's what the points I want to make, and if I did that, I guess there's this, you're familiar with the term right brain and left brain, whether you're an artist or whether you're a scientist. And, as a musician and stuff, you're more entertainment orientated. So it's harder to have that outline, that ADD kind of format. So for me, it's like, all right, this is what's on my heart, and I type, and there's a zillion typos, and there's a horrible grammar, but the concept is there, okay. And then I'm like, this paragraph really stinks. It's good, but it doesn't belong there. I'm going to put that over here. We're going to come and it's almost like putting together a puzzle. And now that I've said that, and I'm not buying this guy's book. He's a freak. But then, by the grace of God, I have a daughter who went to Liberty University and has a degree in English.
Nice.
God has a sense of humor. And there's some really cool software out there that, I'm not going to plug them because they're not paying me, but there's some really cool software out there that uses AI, and it says, did you really mean this? And it rewrites stuff, and it's really cool. It's cheap, and it's really cool. And it gives you like 5 different ways you could say that one paragraph. And it's like, wow, I sound smart. Look at that. And it's, obviously the what you want to get across to the people is the point and the data and the teaching. So if I can use a tool that makes me sound smart, awesome. They're out there though. There's tools out there that make it easy to in our day and age.
Now, for your books, have you gone on tour at all? Have you gone to events? Have you gone to book signings? Do you do any kind of readings anywhere for the books?
I haven't. Like the first two books were really like expensive business cards. I was just giving them to clients, and when I have a seminar, I was giving them to people. The third one that is Awoken, the one that I'm most proud of actually. That's different. That one I plan to do that. It actually was just released on December 5th of last year. And in 12 days, we were bestsellers in like 5 countries, which is just, I can't even wrap my head around it. That's pretty wild. That's exciting. When somebody in Japan, you're on a bestseller list in Japan, and the book is talking about Jesus, that's cool. That's above my pay grade, and that's obviously a God thing.
That's awesome, man. And it's exciting when you can, like you said, go in a different country and be a top seller in a
Yeah.
different country for the book. Now, did you go through traditional publishing? Did you go through Christian
No,
publishing, or did you do self-publishing?
I did the self-publishing. The first book I wrote, I tried to do the quote unquote Christian publishing. And that was my lesson that, I don't want to talk bad about Christian publishers. The one I chose just because they had the word Christian in their title they weren't Christian. It's like, and it was funny. It was a learning lesson. That's where I feel like the Holy Spirit said to me, just because somebody has a C on their shirt doesn't mean they're a Christian. So I did it myself, which was baptism by fire. And Amazon makes it easy now. 12 years ago, it wasn't, but now it's real easy. I mean, you can download the template. You can fill in there all the data. It does the page numbering. It does all the heavy lifting. It really helps. And the AI software fills in the holes, and then when it's done, now you have to give it to somebody who's smarter than you to read it so that they can fix it. Okay, because it doesn't matter how many times you've gone over it, doesn't matter how many spell checks you've done, it doesn't matter how many software you run it through, there's still going to be typos and there's still going to be errors. And mine was released and my daughter went through it and my wife went through it, and then my son was like, hey, you got a typo on page 9. I'm like, well, too bad. At this point, it's done. So there's always going to be mistakes, but you just try not to make them huge.
So typically, how long does it take you to write? Like with me, I stop and go. Now I've learned a new technique for myself. Now I just dictate. Now I just
There you
I'll put
go.
it on. Yep, I'll dictate it, right, and it'll
Nice.
self write. So because I don't have I have like 100 tabs open in my head, so my mind's running 1,000 miles a minute. So it's easier for me to speak it than it is for me to write it.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Yeah, that's cool. And my problem is as a musician, my fingers move faster than my mouth, so I could type, and I'm like, what did I just type? That's not even a word, because they're just going so fast. But I think everybody has a style. Everybody has a there's probably if Stephen King watched this, he'd probably like freak out, because like I'm sure he has a very, very actual style of writing. And people that are not doing it for a living, you don't have the luxury of time to sit down and say, okay, I'm going to write for 8 hours today. Well, it's just like being a musician or a filmmaker or anything else. If the juices aren't there, if you don't have the inspiration, if you don't feel it, you could block off 24 days in a row and have 3 words written. It's got to be, there's times where I like wake up at like 4 a.m, like, ooh, and just start typing. And there's times I'd sit down in front of the keyboard and be like, I got nothing. I'm just going to go watch, TV, call it done. So it's a flow. There's people, you should write 1,000 words a day. Well, that may work for you, but everybody's different. Everybody, not every one of us are going to be, rock stars, and not every kid playing baseball is going to make the major leagues, and I look at it as, have I made any money? No, because I've, been giving away hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of books for over a decade. Wow, that hurts. Anyway, like I said, that's where I use the term expensive business card. But, someday if somebody comes up to me in heaven and says, "Hey, I liked what you wrote there. In fact, that's why I'm here." It's like, cool,
Yeah, it's amazing the things that we find within ourselves, and sometimes it can take some time to actually
Sure.
do that, to find the things that we want to accomplish and the things that we want to do. And to me, I still haven't accomplished everything that I want to accomplish. I still have books that I want to write. And
There you
there's
go.
different types of books that I want to do, with the podcasting as well. With you, when it comes to podcasting, do you usually record your shows on the same day? Do you have a schedule for your shows? How does that typically work? Do you have guests?
That's kind of the same, where it's like some days I'll have, I may have a client meeting at 9 in the morning, and I might be taping a podcast with somebody as a guest at 10, and then I have another client, and then maybe I'm, doing something with one of my own shows. Once again, there's some really cool software that I just stumbled across that's really cheap. And I'll tell you about it after we're done. Maybe you can hit them up and they can become your sponsor, but it'll actually, like what we're recording right now,
Yeah.
it'll print it out and we can edit the video by editing the words.
Wow.
It's crazy. I just downloaded it for the first time like 2 days ago. It's nuts. And you can literally cut paragraphs out and add paragraphs in, and somehow it makes your mouth say those words in the same voice. It's scary, actually. But
Yeah, AI.
yeah, I know. It's brutal. I know. It just, you know, when we were kids and we thought about the future, we didn't think of this.
No.
We didn't
No.
we didn't think of computerized people.
So have you ever thought of taking your books and creating a series for them? Like,
Yes. Um, Ironically, I that was the intent at first. But this pesky thing called a job keeps getting in the way. And people want me to do things with their money, and so maybe when I someday when I either sell my practice or hire somebody else to run it, then I can partially retire and then do it. But there's just not enough hours in the day.
Yeah, I 100% understand what you're talking about. Because if I could sit here and talk to guests all day, I would. I mean, I'm not Joe Rogan. I'm not going to sit for 8 hours with one guest, but I I would change it up. But yeah, I'm like you. I'm very passionate about what I do with the podcasting. I'm very passionate about wanting to get my books done. It's just not enough time, and people don't understand that. I'm in the financial world myself, so it takes up a lot of your time. People don't understand how mentally draining our jobs are and what we do. They just don't. Like, I deal with business customers every day. I'm sure you deal with regular folks and business customers every day, and it's a mentally draining job, and you just don't have the energy to concentrate all the time.
Yeah, well, especially if you have folks that are maybe, dare I say, high maintenance. I mean, there's some folks that they're a joy to work with, and there's some folks that everybody's personality either meshes or clashes. And we're all here because God put us here that way, and we're blessed that they're clients, but you still have to do your very, very, very best for them. But after those kinds of meetings, you're spent. Like I would often say, I don't have any bandwidth left here,
Right.
to do anything else.
And you're passionate and you want to do it, you just can't. So
Yeah.
for you, where can people find both your podcasts? Because it's not one, it's
Okay.
two podcasts. Where can they find you at? When does the podcast come out?
They're both under one umbrella
Mhm.
on Spotify. Now, Spotify has a thing, and I'm new to this part of the whole computer part, but it has a thing where it automatically sends it to Apple and to all of the other different, the Google and all the other different ones. So I have that, so that supposedly it's going out to like, all 10 different entities that host podcasts. So the Money Matters show and the Kingdom Financial Ministry show are, they're both together under one one roof on that. So if they just went to my main non-Christian, no, my main non-financial website, which is dongalade.com, GALADE.com. That kind of gives them the stepping off point where, if you want to go to books, here you go. And if you want to talk about the podcasts, you go here. The financial planning is Kingdom Financial Ministries or GFS Financial. That's, it's pretty self-explanatory. Of course, there's, I don't want to go into that because we didn't do the disclaimers and the regulations.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, no worries. I know. Trust me. I fully understand.
Forms and
I fully understand. So listen, I want to thank you for coming on the show. You're a high energy guy. Your belief is, brings you joy, and I can see it in your face when you talk about it. It's always good to have faith in something that you believe in, and it's spurring you in the right direction. Listen,
right.
You're giving the books away. It's something that you feel you have to do. Like you said, it's like a business card for you, just a big business card, but it'll come back to you. I believe it will, because you're putting the time and the effort to do what you're doing and enjoy it. But I'm going to leave you with what I leave everyone with. No matter what anybody tells you, if you found your purpose, live it. Again, thank you for coming on the show, and we will talk to you guys later.